Life after Microsoft Windows. Game on. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much once again joining me for tea time. Today we have a little bit of misty morning. That is it. I hope you're joining me with your cup of tea, maybe a cup of coffee, hanging out, talking tech, talking photo, talking video. Today is a technology day. We're going to talk about Microsoft Windows, Windows 11, and a lot of people are trying to break free of it and move into Linux or some other type of alternative operating system, an alternative OS. Maybe it's even Mac. Mac is actually Linux too. Some people don't know that, but it is. So we've been using Linux Fedora for about, I'd say 2 weeks now or so, since the beginning of this new series. This life after, instead of Adobe, it's life after Microsoft Windows, cutting the cord. So this series, if you want to get more of this type of thing, I'll put a link over here. You can go and check that out. Don't do it now. Don't click that yet. After you're done watching this video, check it out. My goal with this series is to see if I could use Linux as a daily driver instead of using Windows that I've been using for countless decades at this point, right? Is it possible to now move into Linux? For many, many years, the answer is absolutely no, but today, we're getting close. I'm not sure as of yet, you'll know by the end of this series, but what I'm doing is I'm going through all of the things that I currently need to do day-to-day activities on a computer. What are those? And I put together a list. And in my last video, or the video before that, I asked you to make a list too, to see if you can move into Linux as a daily driver. Is it possible or is it not? And that list that I had, one of the things on it was gaming. And that's what we're doing today. Matter of fact, I'm going to pull up a game and we're just going to run that in the background. And at the end of this video, if you want to continue watching me play, then you can do so. If not, you can tune out. Either which way, but I'm going to keep that running just to show that we can actually game on Linux. Not only game, we can game really, really well. And that's once again what this video is going to be all about. What kind of games can you play on Linux? What kind of games you can't, and why? That is very important. This channel has always been about the why. So before we dive into this topic, I just want to say that if you enjoy the content, throw it a thumbs up. That'll be very helpful. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not. If you are, thank you. I appreciate it. Click this little button over here, the notification button. So when I go live or when a new video comes out, you will be notified of it immediately. And I'm going to be going live a lot more in the future. So hang in there for that. Also, if you just want to say thank you for all of my hard work on this channel, you can click down here. There's a little thank you button. Give $1 or $2 if you like. If not, that's perfectly fine. The video is still free. I would appreciate it though. Either which way, consider becoming a member of the channel. That would be even better. And if you haven't downloaded any of my ebooks, check them out. They're free just for you being here. Go to JCristina.com/books. Once again, JCristina.com/books. So while this gameplay is running, let's talk about it a little bit. I was reading an article, I think it was on Tech Radar or one of the tech rags, and they were talking about the Ryzen 7, the 9700X, and they were doing a direct comparison, gaming comparison, some applications too. They were comparing games running on Linux in comparison to games running on Windows 11, and they gave a bunch of data. I'm just going to read to you a little bit of this article, and then I'll give you, of course, my commentary on it. And then lastly, down below, I want to hear from you. What do you think about all of this? Are you interested in the gaming aspect of Linux? Is Linux something that you would get into, use it as a daily driver if you can game? Some people, like for example, for me, I need a little bit more than gaming. Gaming is one of those, let's say, the wants, not the needs. For me, the needs is content creation because I'm constantly coming up with new videos for you guys. So I need to have DaVinci Resolve working, that's my NLE, my non-linear editor, my video editor. I need to have some type of Photoshop derivative. We don't do Photoshop on this channel. We don't do any Adobe products on this channel. That's why I broke free when I did the Life After Adobe Cutting the Cord series 5 years ago. Check that out. Matter of fact, I'll put a link over here. How to cut the cord with Adobe. Much easier than you think to do so. And I did it. And once again, I did it 5 years ago as a professional content creator. A lot of people said, oh, you can't do that. but we did. And now we're working into the life after Microsoft Windows side of things. So let's get into this article. And then once again, I'll give you my commentary and then I want to hear from you. So it starts out by saying AMD's Ryzen 9000 processors run very nicely under Linux, it seems, based on recently conducted testing. And indeed, it is a better OS than Windows 11 when it comes to performance of Team Red's latest desktop chip. PC Games Hardware, a German tech site, put the Ryzen 7 9700X through its paces and compared the performance of the CPU in Nimbara Linux 40 against Windows 11 24H2. Now, if you don't know, Nimbara Linux 40 or Nimbara is basically a derivative or another distro off the Fedora distro that we're currently using. So Fedora would be a base, whereas Nimbara is basically a gaming-centric version, let's call it, where they really dial stuff in for gaming and for content creating, and they put in a lot of the apps that you need automatically into the distribution, and then they tweak things to make it run even better. So that's basically what Nimbara Linux is. It's a distribution off Fedora, what we're currently using. The overall findings indicate that the mid-range processor was faster under Linux when gaming, going by average frame rates across a clutch of popular titles. Now, before we go any further, I just want to say, when they say a clutch of popular titles, I want to get into something with you guys before the end of this video. I'm going to bring you over to a site where you can actually go and check out all of the games that you want to play and see if they will play on Linux, and also how well they will play on Linux. So this is really cool. So once again, hang in there. We'll get to that in just a second. The article continues. These weren't massive wins for Linux, but they were 5 to 10% in favor of Nimbara Linux compared to Microsoft Windows 11. So even at 5 to 10% faster, that is a big deal. They continue by saying, this wasn't just about gaming, but apps ran faster in Nimbara too, such as 7-Zip, which is an archival backup type of utility, and synthetic benchmarks like Geekbench. Once again, similar 5 to 10% increase in comparison to Windows 11. That's with Linux. That's just simply running a different OS, and you're getting 5 to 10% increase right across the board in gaming as well as applications. That's a big deal. Now, my findings are very much so similar to this German website that did this testing. And what I have found is, for example, if I'm using DaVinci Resolve and I'm editing this video or any video, and I was to edit the exact same video, the same timeline and everything, which is easy for me to do because both of these operating systems are on the exact same PC. I dual boot, so I'll go into Linux or I'll go into Windows, and I do the exact same edit. And what I find is, for example, if I'm doing transitions between, let's say, clips where I make a mistake and now I'm going to do a transition between it, when I play the timeline and it gets to the transition, it hiccups, it just doesn't play well. Whereas on Linux, it doesn't. It plays the transition perfectly. So that means that it has a little bit more horsepower under the hood using Linux in comparison to Windows, in my personal opinion. Also, what I find is when I export a video, it exports anywhere from about 20 to 30% faster on Linux in comparison to Windows. So that is also a big time savings for me, just doing the edit using DaVinci Resolve on Linux in comparison to using it on Windows. Now, we also did what you see here, this game. I just did Guild Wars 2 because one of you guys said you like Guild Wars 2. I said, you know what? I've played it before. Let me go ahead and play Guild Wars 2 and you can see it. And that's what we're doing here. And as you can see, it's pretty smooth, right? There's no hiccups. I'm getting anywhere from about maybe 60 frames per second, 70 frames per second. And when things get really packed, remember, this is an MMO. All right, so there is a lot going on, and when there's a lot of people, sometimes you have 30, 40, 50 people fighting in this meta event against a dragon or something, right? And when that happens, there's a ton of people, and the pings start going up, and the frame rates start crashing down, but there's so much going on. So what I've found is I'm getting anywhere from about 50 to 60, let's say, frames per second. And then on the low end, anywhere from 20 to 30 frames per second, depending on, once again, where we are and how many people are on the screen in this MMO. But when I'm doing the exact same gameplay on Windows in comparison to Fedora Linux, it is definitely slower. I'm getting anywhere from about 4 to 8 frames per second faster just simply using Linux in comparison to using Windows. Now, just so you guys know, for many years, there was only about 50 games, maybe 100 games, and they were pretty much trashed. There was a couple of ones that were okay, worth playing, but for the most part, they were like chess and stuff like that. It really was horrible. But what ended up happening was Steam. And Steam just changed everything. A lot of people know what Steam is. Basically, it's a means of downloading video games and then playing it through Steam. You can play it through a Steam Deck. You can play it through all kinds of different things. But you download through that main center called Steam, and then you can play the games. But what's really nice is Steam now has a means of playing games that are normally for Windows on Linux. Now, one of the means of playing these games on Linux is using Proton. Now, if you don't know, Proton is basically a layer, like a compatibility layer that sits over, let's say, a Windows game or any type of game, and it allows for the game to be able to communicate with Linux on its own terms, let's say. Once again, it's a layer that sits over it. It's almost like, let's call it a translator. So when you go overseas and you're talking to someone, they don't know what the hell you're talking about, you put something through a translator and now you understand, you kind of go back and forth. That's kind of what this is. Let's just call it that. Not exact, but it was designed by Valve. And Valve is a massive, massive company, game company. So Proton is really powerful. Matter of fact, let's go over to my screen and we're going to go to Proton, because this is, like I said from the beginning of this video, this is really important if you want to game on Linux. What games work? And then also, why do they work and why do they not work? That's what we're going to get into. So let's go over to my screen real quick. Now that we're over on Google, let's go ahead and type in Proton DB. Hit enter. The very first site pops up here. Click on that. Now, this is where you want to be to see if the games that you're looking for are available on Linux or not. Now, as we can see, it says Chromebook ready. The games are 176. We have deck verified 15,900. Holy crap. Then we have games on Proton or using Proton, and we see there's 21,900. So as you can see, there is tens of thousands of games that are available for you to play on Linux. This was never the case. Like I said before, it used to be like, 25, 50, 100 games, 200 games, very small amount. The only good ones were probably a handful. And that was the old Linux. Now with Steam, it's not that way anymore. You go into Steam and you can download any of these games. And once again, Proton is that compatibility layer that allows you to play these games. Once again, tens of thousands of them. Now, let's go over to Explore. All right, click on the tab at the top for Explore. Now we can see here Ark Survival Evolved. We see Team Fortress 2. We see Left 4 Dead. And there's Native next to it. You see this little green? Native means that it is a native application to Linux, meaning that the authors actually wrote a version that was specific for Linux, that it just simply works. All right, that's great. Now, if we go down a little bit further, we can see some titles that are labeled gold. Now, gold, like for example, The Forest here, means that it runs perfectly, but you need to do a little bit of a tweak. Now, it will tell you what kind of tweak to do. Maybe there's a permission thing where there's one file that you have to change a permission to, or maybe there's a directory that's missing or you have to move, or just something very minor. But once you do that, it will still run perfectly as labeled gold. Now, if we move down a little bit further, we can see Dying Light is labeled as platinum. Now, platinum as a labeled game is a game that isn't native, meaning that it wasn't written for Linux, but using that Proton layer, that compatibility layer, it runs flawlessly. That is a platinum labeled game. Now, if we move down a little bit further, we can see bronze. In my personal opinion, I would not play bronze. It says runs, but often crashes and has issues preventing from playing, let's say, comfortably. And that makes sense. I wouldn't play those. Stick with platinum, stick with native, and then every once in a while, take a look at a gold if you don't mind jumping into a terminal window and changing something. They tell you how to do it, so it's not like it's that difficult. Anyway, so that is where you want to go. Now, if there's a game that you want to look for to see if it will run, you're going to come up here on the left-hand side into the search games and type it in. So, for example, if I type in Guild Wars 2, now that's what's playing currently on the screen, or was a minute ago. We'll get that running in just a second. If we go to Guild Wars 2, all right, we can see that it's labeled as a platinum game. Once again, it is not a native game, but using Proton and that compatibility layer, it will run flawlessly. And what we've found is that we're getting actually higher frame rates, we're getting better frame rates, we're getting less like lag and little jitter stuff that we were getting with the Windows equivalent on the exact same box. Just simply changing the OS, simply changing the operating system from Windows to Linux. We're getting a better gameplay with Guild Wars 2. Now, at the beginning of the video, I said that there were some games that just simply don't play on Linux, and I was going to tell you why. Because once again, as I always say, this channel is always about the why, right? So let's go back over to the screen and click Explore. And instead of saying popular, let's change that over to player count. Now, we can see, wow, look at CS2 or Counter-Strike 2, over 1 million peak players. Dota 2, 750,000. We got PUBG Battlegrounds, 750,000. There is a lot of players. Now, we can see in green, we have CS2 and Dota 2, both labeled as native. That means that they work. Why? Because once again, they were written for Linux, no problem. But look at this, borked. PUBG, right? It says either won't start or is critically unplayable. Now, let's look at some more red labeled games, and maybe you could figure out the why this is, all right? Let's figure this out together. Let's move down here. Let's see if we find another red game. Here's one, COD, Call of Duty, borked. Also, won't play. Let's go down a little further. Here we go. Destiny 2. Then EA Sports. Let's keep going down here. What else? Tom Clancy, Rainbow Six Siege. What do we see here? First-person shooters, maybe? That's one of the things. But what is the main reason behind these being borked or not working at all? What these games have in common is they have an anti-cheat layer that goes on, so people don't snipe you through walls and stuff like this, because people love cheating at video games. And these top-end or AAA rated games, they have these anti-cheat layers or software that has to be run in the background. If not, you can't play their game. Well, some games now have written their anti-cheat for Linux, but a lot of them have not yet. I don't know why they don't put forth the effort, because a lot of the companies have already. So, coming full circle here, if you are looking to play games on Linux, once again, go over to Proton DB or Proton Database and check it out to see if the game that you want to play will play on Linux or not. That's number one. If not, of course, you can always dual boot and play your one game on your Windows box or on that Windows partition if you wanted to, either which way. But as we see, over 20,000 games are currently available on Linux. Remember, just 3-4 years ago, there was like, 220 games. I don't know. There was nothing, and it was all junk. But once again, thanks to Steam, everything has changed. And every one of the distros out there, I don't care which one you pick, could be Fedora, it could be an Ubuntu, it could be whatever, an Arch Linux, I don't care what it is. Steam will work on it, period. It will automatically install and you'll be able to download your games immediately, all right? That is very powerful. So I'm going to continue running this game footage. If you want to watch it, you can. If you want to step off, you can step off. Whatever works for you. But I'm just going to run it out so you can watch actually gameplay and see if it's something that you're interested in, and you can watch on how the smoothness or anytime it gets choppy, and notice when there's a ton of people on the battlefield, how things slow down a bit. That's just going to be the way it is. But remember, on Windows, it slows down even worse. Keep that in mind. So once again, I'm going to keep that running, but before I get out of here, I just want to say that if you enjoyed the video, like I said before, throw it a thumbs up. That is very helpful. Also, down below, comment. If you don't want to comment, that's fine. Put an emoji down there. Put a game controller, a joystick down there. Put a rocket ship. Put a poop emoji. I don't care. Just so I know that you got to the end of this video, I would really, really appreciate that. And finally, head over to my website, JCristina.com, where you can find all the photography tools I've invented for you and me over the many years, and check out my merch, my tees, my shirts, my books, all my stuff. Check it out. If there's something there that you'd like, consider picking something up and helping support me and my family. I would really appreciate it. Many blessings to you and your family. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay connected, and we'll see you in the next one. Love you all. Take care. And back to the gaming. I'm back. Future Joe is here, and I was thinking to myself while editing this video, maybe I should ask everyone to offer up a game that they would like to see me play. So, if there's a game that you would like me to play on the channel, let me know in the comments below. Put that game in there. Make sure that it's either a native game or a platinum game. Like we said before, those are the ones that are going to work, and they're going to work perfectly. Don't tell me to go and play COD or Call of Duty or something, right? We're not going to do that because it doesn't work, because of the anti-cheat. Anyways, down below, put that. Back to the game.
I think that's... Oh, no!
Coming around again!
Let's get those cannons back up!
What? Want to get away? Come on, come on!
Fast as the wind. Nature defends me! You're seeing things! That feels better. I don't have enough energy. How very satisfying.
Target marked.
Swirling gust.
I am fighting you. Protected.
Just a bit of a
Combination.
Protected. What's on your mind? We got it! It's going down!
Fantastic shot! I want that.
they show up, we'll kill them too.
I owe you one.
That's refreshing. Rare treasure. Look at this. So pretty. Rare treasure. I chose you.